Thank you, sir.
होना था ना, अब वो चले जाओ। नहीं, मसला आ जाता है ना बीच में।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम। क्या हाल चाल है असद?
बिल्कुल ठीक, आप सुनाएं।
हाय वकार।
हेलो।
कल आपकी मुलाकात नहीं है? शहजाद दादा फ्रॉम स्टैंडर्ड चार्टर्ड, सीईओ ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड चार्टर्ड। वकार,
शक्ल जानी पहचानी है। नहीं, बहुत अच्छी तरह मुलाकात।
जाहिर है।
एक मिनट मुझे ना दे। Yeah, Shehzad, thanks a lot for coming in. Shehzad,
My pleasure. My pleasure, Khalid.
Thanks a lot. So we look forward to a very good interactive dialogue. Assalamualaikum, Muhammad Ali.
क्या हाल है, कैसे हैं जी? खैरियत से हैं आप?
I'm okay.
My voice
check कर लें फिर ना. We are going in for mute and we are disappearing.
पानी दे
Mute कर दें अभी. Take. Yes.
Do we have time? 1-2 minutes?
1 minute, yes.
Okay, just give me 1 minute.
अच्छा, इसको जरा मुझे म्यूट कर दे.
Let us start. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul a'udhu birabbil falaq min sharri ma khalaq wa min sharri ghasiqin idha waqab wa min sharri naffaathati fil 'uqad wa min sharri hasidin idha hasad. Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening. Today is a historical day for me to start a webinar series for PIB Committee of ICAP. I welcome all of you on this platform where we present a webinar on Pakistan's economy today and tomorrow. On our panel, believe me, we have amazing panelists and moderator. By amazing, I mean they are very high profile, visionary personalities, business leaders, economists, seasoned business analysts, a renowned banker, our past president, and accomplished professional with a tremendous experience to talk about economy. Don't miss the chance to interact with these personalities through live Q&A, an interesting poll, and chat features. The session will be of 90 minutes. My name is Shahzad Dedi, and I am a part of Professional Accountant and Business Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. Without much ado, let me request our President of ICAP, who is the youngest president ever in the history of ICAP, a visionary leader himself, who broke all records in history of ICAP in his academia and later on served the institute with various initiatives and is still serving apart from his role as a CFO for PIA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Khalilullah Sheikh. Over to you, Khalilullah.
Thank you so much, Azad. Assalamu alaikum and very good evening to all the participants. On behalf of the Institute of Pakistan, I'm extremely pleased to welcome you all to this very useful and timely webinar organized by the Professional Accountants and Business Committee of ICAP. My sincere compliments to the committee headed by Khalid Rahman Saab for also publishing a very interesting thought leadership paper today on business continuity in COVID-19. It's a very interesting read. I encourage all the participants to go through that. My special gratitude to our eminent panelists, Muhammad Ali Tabba Saab, Shahzad Dada Saab, Asad Ali Shah Saab, Ali Khizar Saab, and also our distinguished moderator, Vikarul Islam Sahib. Thank you for sparing time out of your busy schedules to enrich our audience with your wisdom and your experience. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going through an unprecedented global crisis, at least in our living memory. From health emergency to now a painful socio-economic calamity, COVID has rapidly and enormously impacted all of us at all levels: personal, organizational, society, and even national level. While the actual depth and breadth of the crisis is yet to unfold, one thing is quite obvious to all of us. It is going to have lasting impacts on our social norms, on our business models, on our national policies, and also on global geopolitical arena. In this testing and stressful scenario, all of us are trying to cope with the unanticipated twists and turns. Individuals are worried about personal health and economic security. Organizations are struggling to sustain in the face of lockdowns, diminishing demand, ruptured supply chains, and insufficient cash flows. And governments also are continuously facing the difficult policy choices, balancing safety of citizens on one hand versus minimizing the economic pain on the other side. When we see the US government's $2.2 trillion relief package has been dwarfed by the crisis, we can all imagine how difficult and complex the choices will be for a country like ours with limited resources and where millions were already struggling to make both ends meet. How do we handle this? On organizational level, on macro level, we will all learn from our distinguished panelists today. But what is important, I believe, in this unique and unprecedented situation, that it demands from all leaders, including ourselves, to be more resilient than ever, to be more innovative, egoless, and flexible in our approach to solutions, and to continue to reflect, reassess, adapt, and collaborate. There's one more important point that I would like to make here. While most of the news items, programs, research reports, they're counting the catastrophic impacts of the crisis, I believe it is also important that we reflect on some of the unique opportunities that are also churning out of this crisis. For example, the greater focus of government on healthcare system, trying to make it more inclusive, the greater push for digitization, which can really help document the economy. And gradually it will diminish the importance of costly infrastructure. The greater drive for innovation and homemade solutions like the ventilator production that we have seen are some of those examples. On the ICAP front, on the institute side, ICAP, being one of the most prestigious institute of the country, with its alumni proving its mettle across the globe, will continue to play its due role on all fronts. For business and finance professionals, we will continue to organize similar professional development and learning seminars to help them reflect, reorient themselves to not only be effective on individual level, but also how can they better support their organizations in navigating through this crisis. We will also continue to play a role as trusted advisor for policymakers by sharing with them the objective suggestions about how best to support various segments of society. We will also continue to be a credible intermediary between our business houses and government, sharing their issues with them, identifying policy interventions on how to remove hardship and enable the environment further. Now, before I hand over to our very able moderator, Vicar Saab, let me pray to Almighty that we sail through this storm safely and come out of this crisis stronger than before. Thank you so much. Vicar Saab, over to you.
Thank you very much, Khalid. Thank you so very much for a very nice intro. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, we heard a sad news today of Mr. Ali Habib passing away. May I request 1 minute silence for all to offer Fatiha for the departed soul. And we also offer our condolences to the bereaved family. We just take a 1 minute silence to offer Fatiha. Thank you very much. And Assalamu alaikum and very warm welcome to everyone who's joined us on Zoom and who are also on Facebook Live. Before I proceed, a public service message from ICAP. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay hopeful, and please practice social distancing for yourself and for all the connected ones around you. Few logistics items before we proceed with the actual seminar and I introduce the panelists. Since we are doing a webinar and sometime technology plays up, so we have a backup for me just in case I have to leave the panel for technology reasons, and the backup panel will take over from me and run the session uninterrupted, asking questions to the panelists or asking the panelists to give their remarks. The backup team is also taking notes of all your chats and question and answers. So please keep question and answer coming, which you can see on your panel, write questions, keep them brief. And if you want to ask it to a specific panelist, please write the name. And the backend team will then, at the end, when we go to the Q&A session, will put various themes to the questions and we'll then go to the panelists and ask each one of them. So we need more questions so that we make this dialogue a lot more engaging. Let's move on to the topic. So the topic today is about a crisis that we are all dealing with, and Mr. Khalil also spoke about it. And is it only a challenge or are there opportunities as well? How do we deal with the crisis, but also how do we come out, hopefully, more successful and more innovative and more stronger and resilient from the crisis? A lot of debate around the world and also in this country that should we deal with virus or should we deal with economy? And is it about either or? That is, you do virus and forget about economy and we'll take care of economy when the time comes, but then for now only focus on the virus part. the thing to ask is, are we really oversimplifying the problem? Have we thought about the impact when we make a statement that it is the virus only and we'll deal with the economy when it happens? And let me share some perspective with everyone on the global scale as to the impact of this virus on the economy front. US in the last 4 weeks have lost 22 million jobs. 22 million jobs in last 4 weeks. This, by the way, is more than the jobs created in US in the last 10 years by 2 million. So US right now is net 2 million negative in terms of employment than what it created in last 10 years. If this doesn't surprise you, then look at this number. COVID is expected to bring 500 million people below poverty line. That's a staggering number. And if we ignore economy and if we don't somehow strike the right balance, these numbers can look a lot more ugly. The loss to global economy is expected to be $9 trillion during this crisis. This $9 trillion, just to put it in perspective, equals or is greater than the economies of Japan and Germany combined together. The recession in 2008 and the global recession that many of us will remember, which impacted the globe in a massive way, and many of us got affected by it, the global recession shrunk the economy by 0.1%. This crisis is going to shrink the global economy by 3%. That's the kind of impact we are talking about on economy. So it is really about, is it really about virus and economy? Where is the famous cliche gone, which said it is the economy stupid? Now it seems it is the virus genius, not the economy. Can we afford to be either or do we need to think of more innovative ways, as Khalil also mentioned, about dealing with both? And if we focus on one and forget the other, then the consequences can be grave, and they can be, God forbid, graver or more serious than the virus itself, which needs to be dealt with. The other point that we need to remember is, given the way things are spreading and scaling up with over close to 2 million cases now around the world, possibly have crossed the number, this pandemic is not a 2 weeks or a 4 weeks or a 6 weeks or an 8 weeks issue. It will only be dealt with when the cure or the medicine is available. From all the forecast and predictions as of now, it seems it's 12 to 18 months away. They can expedite it by a few months, but we're still talking about many quarters. How do we deal with this till the time a cure is available and we go back to a new normal? These are questions that require answers, that requires dispassionate analysis, and that requires answers from people who are going through and dealing with this more or less on a minute-by-minute basis. And that's why we have a panel which is very articulate, which is very well versed on the economy front as well as on the business front. And they'll be sharing with you their perspective on the crisis itself, on the opportunities, what has been done better, what could be done better, and how can we come out more resilient from this. Let me just quickly introduce the panel to you. We have Mr. Shahzad Dada. He's president of Overseas Chamber and also president for Standard Chartered Pakistan. Very warm welcome, Shahzad. Thank you very much for joining. We have Mr. Mohammad Ali Tabba, a very well-known industrialist and businessman from Pakistan, recognized by a World Economic Forum, and also chief executive for Lucky Cement. Very warm welcome, Ali. Thank you so much for joining. We have Mr. Asad Ali Shah, very well-known economist, past president of ICAP. He is also on the board of Karachi Electric, chairman Pakistan Refinery, and my fellow colleague also as a member policy board for SECP. Asad, thank you so much for joining. Very warm welcome. And then we have Ali Khizr, who is a known researcher, analyst, consultant, and has a great eye on topics of economy and business. So we will explore and go to each one of them one by one and talk about various facets of economy, because the topic is economy, but of course everything will be discussed in the wake of virus itself as well. And I'll start with Shehzad first. So Shehzad, if you can focus purely from your view as an overseas chamber president and also as one of the leading personality of the financial industry in this country, as to how you see the economy shaping up in this country and how you see the overall financial industry dealing with this crisis. Over to you, Shehzad.
Thank you, Waqar. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, a big thank you to ICAP for organizing this. Great panelist and thank you, Shehzad and Khalil and Waqar for the introduction. I mean, not to be repetitive, but I think we all agree here on one thing for sure, that this is a huge crisis that we are facing, not just Pakistan, but globally. And its impacts are going to be very deep and very long lasting. But at the same time, I think it's going to really set, as you mentioned, Waqar, set a change in behavior and possibly give us a huge opportunity to take advantage of. So not to undermine the importance of what we are facing or the challenges we are facing. I think we all know the numbers. $20 trillion loss to global economy, which is almost 25% of the total economy itself. So it's a big economic loss. The death toll numbers that we have seen are far greater than any crisis that we've seen. So it's to your point, Waqar, what you were saying, the fine balance between human and economic toll, and how do we balance it? And honestly, I would love to hear other panelists' view, but my view is it's going to be extremely important that we balance these two issues very intelligently and very responsibly, because one cannot overestimate the importance of both of them, especially to a country like ourselves, which has a very fragile economy and do not have a luxury of surpluses that some of our Western economies are enjoying. Furthermore, I think this crisis is also not just typically it's either supply side or demand side. This crisis is a supply side shock and a demand side shock. And I think for that, we really need to look at both aspects, and I'll touch upon that. We are talking about recovery. Nobody knows the answer. If anybody is telling you, they are perhaps just taking a best guess. Initially, the talk was that it's going to be a V-shaped recovery. I think everybody has accepted the fact that this is going to most probably be either U-shaped, perhaps even a W-shaped recovery, and worst case, a L-shaped recovery. And I think this could take a couple of years to get out. And again, the behaviors will be long-lasting till the vaccine comes out. So again, I think we need to keep in mind, in my allocated time, I just want to touch upon, as you said, on the economy and the business challenges and the responses so far, focus a bit about opportunities and take up some of that in the Q&A. And I was asked to talk a little bit about some leadership suggestions and some lessons I've learned and what I've seen some of the best practitioners doing. So let's turn quickly to the economy. I think you've talked about the global economy, on Pakistan economy, and from a financial services sector. I think this is the first time since its inception that IMF has given us negative growth rate. First of all, I think all these projections are changing literally on a weekly basis, in some cases daily basis. So one cannot just rely on that, but I'm just telling you that right now, the forecast is negative 1.5% growth. This is the second time since inception. We have gone through global financial crisis. We've gone through nuclear tests, 9/11. Never have we
I think Shehzad is having some connectivity issue. We'll wait for a few seconds. If he doesn't come back, I'll go to the next panelist. Okay, when Shehzad will come back, we'll take his views again. Ali, I'll come to you. Give us an account of the life of an entrepreneur and a businessman these days. Because while at the country level, we talk about, country leaders dealing with human lives, with virus on one hand and economy on the other hand, but the business leaders are going through exactly the same challenges. How is it being handled? How do you see things which have shaped up in the last few months, especially last 4 weeks in Pakistan? What could have been done better? What could be done differently? How you see businesses coming out of this crisis? and dealing with the people part as well as the business part. Ali, over to you.
Thank you, Vikas bhai. I think I would like to thank ICAP for inviting us on this forum. I think I would start by just paying a small tribute to Ali Habib. He was a great business icon and a great person, and today we have lost him, and it's a great loss to our country and to business community at large. Now, coming back to your question, Vikas bhai, I think, look, if you look at the industries, we need to split into two: the local side, which caters to the local demand, and the industries which are catering to the export demand. The biggest challenge today is the industries which are catering to export orders, and as you know, because of our export market, which is primarily Europe and USA, and both the economies are having huge challenges because of lockdowns, unemployment, and other issues because of COVID-19. So what is happening is, that suddenly they have stopped the orders. I would not say that they have stopped across the board, but the biggest hit is the apparel industry, followed by other export, which we do, home textiles. But by far the biggest hit today is the apparel industry, where the customers have actually halted the order by just saying that please don't ship the orders. So what are the two challenges? Two challenges are: A is going to be jobs. How are we going to secure the jobs of those people, who are stitching the garments and who are working on salaries, daily wage, and piece rate? The other challenge is the liquidity, because of the sudden halt in shipments, all the exporters are facing a huge liquidity crunch. So at the same time, I would want to appreciate, the proactive decision making, at the federal government level, and I really want to thank our Minister for Advisor to Finance, Hafiz Sheikh Saab, Advisor to Commerce, Abdul Razak Daud Saab, and also the Minister for Industry, Hamad Azhar. I think they have really played a very important role in helping the businesses, at this time, and especially the export sector, where they really have been instrumental in releasing the stock, what we call the rebates, the DLTL, the sale tax. So at least, they're helping in easing the liquidity crunch, So that will help the industry to sustain. But the other challenge, which I mentioned earlier, is the jobs. How do we protect the jobs of the people? So I think every company has its own policy, in terms of retaining the jobs, whether they do it by doing some pay cuts. Some are still holding people on job, and they say we will see after a couple of months, maybe the situation would start improving. So, every company is making its decision according to their situation. The opportunity, today will be our local demand, and it is a time, when the lockdown is over. I'm sure that we will not be at the same level of demand as pre-COVID-19, but I'm sure the demand should recover at least up to 80%, And if I give you the example of cement industry, since the government has relaxed, the construction industry, our cement demand in the north region has come back to 80%. So let's say if we were doing 100 tons day dispatch, we are back to 80 tons. So there's only a gap of 20% left. In South, because the lockdown is continuing and the Sindh government still hasn't relaxed the construction industry, so our demand recovery is very slow in the South. And also the other factor is the exports, because the export is very important for the cement industries out of the South. So because of the lockdown in countries where we export, there is a permanent slowdown. But I'm sure as with time, maybe by next month, we'll start some recovery in the export for cement also. So other good decision I think the federal government has done is giving a very good package on the construction side. If you go back to histories, during World Wars, Great Depression, all those economies and countries at that time, whenever they get into the crisis, the best way to get out of the crisis is you reactivate your construction industry, because it employs a lot of people, especially people who are on daily wages. It helps reactivate, your industries which are linked with construction. Cement, steel are the bigger ones, but then you have 24 allied industries, which are linked with construction industry. So at this time, I think if the government is able to allocate, funds, from PSDP, and try to allocate those funds to build infrastructure, I think it will be a great stimulus to the overall economic activity, and it will help to kind of start and rebuild our growth from the level where we are today. The other, I think, sector is going to be agriculture. Agriculture is also a very important and a backbone, for Pakistan. It gives employment, in the rural areas, and is a food basket for people, who are living in the rural, of course, as well as the, people in the urban areas. If we are able to cultivate more land, into food security, because if you look at our imports, food imports, all the pulses, most of those items, palm oil are being imported in this country. But there are import substitute, which we can do it. And this is the time I think the government should put a focus also in ensuring that the support price, wherever it's required, should be given. So the farmers are given the opportunity and the incentive, to grow the crops which we don't actually grow, and we depend mainly on imports. So that's going to be another segment, that can really be helpful in providing jobs and making sure that we don't, that people don't lose jobs. The third is Make in Pakistan. I think the Pakistan Business Council has been very vocal, that we need to start looking at industries for import substitution. And this is the right time. If you really want to create another, stimulus in the economy, this is the area where we have to look at it. That today, in Pakistan, during this COVID-19, we realized, that we don't make ventilators, we don't make masks, we don't make PPE suits. Everything is being imported into this country, So we really need to look at it, that how and what are the areas, that can be, where the entrepreneurs can invest, for import substitutions. And there are many industries, that can be looked at it. The other area, which is also important is, I think if we go back 20 years ago, after 9/11, when we faced the similar crisis, this crisis is different than the 9/11, but the situation is exactly the same, where we had, lower growth. We had huge crisis on our current account and other problems, which we faced. Today, because of the COVID-19, I think all the multilaterals, IMF, World Bank has come forward, and has given relief package to the developing economies, and Pakistan is one of the countries, which will benefit from it. So while all the commodity prices, have also come down, and with the reduction of interest rate, which is also a great step, and a very bold initiative by Governor State Bank, Dr. Raza Bakir, I think all these decisions will help Pakistan to actually come out of the crisis in a much better way, because the decisions, as I said earlier, taken by the government, and now and also the decisions taken by the Governor State Bank, I think this is all going to create stimulus in our economy, and this is what is required. So there's a bleak situation on the exports, but I'm very optimistic, that our local demand, our local industries, our construction industries will help us to recover our growth, which might be negative by end of this fiscal year. But if we get all our policies right, I think we can really come out of it in a very nice way, and it will help us to maintain the jobs, protect the jobs, help the domestic industry, and see, that we can help the businesses, we can help our people, and we need to be very innovative. As I said earlier also, that we really need to be very innovative. The industries which we are already, which we have a great strength, I think we need to start looking at more diversification And this is the time we do it. The interest rates are going to come down. State Bank has also got a new policy that anybody who does a greenfield will be eligible for 7%, lower interest rate, which is 7%. So all these are positive, I think, tools available for businesses. And I think it's up to us, that how we actually take the benefit of it.
Thank you very much, Ali. Very insightful. Good to hear about government measures, and you spoke about quite a few of them. And I'm sure that will help all the businesses out there to have that platform available to use it productively. And you also gave some very insightful suggestions on the opportunities that are available. While exports clearly are challenging, but it can well be substituted by more demand or creating more demand across various industries in Pakistan. Great example on the construction side, on what it has done to the demand side in the northern and north of Pakistan. You also spoke about agriculture, and I think you also made a very important point about building import substitution industries, and this is the time to do it. We may not have been focused on it as much as we should have, talking about not making basic stuff as ventilators and masks and PPE equipment, etc. But if that was not done, that's all hindsight, that's all past. This is the time to do it. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And this is really the time to innovate, which is another key point that you brought about in your opening intro. Thank you very much once again. We'll come back to you. We have quite a few questions for you as well, but as we go along, we'll come back and ask for those. Shehzad Dada is back. Technology sometimes is great, but at times it plays up as well, and we need to live with it. So Shehzad, you can pick up the thread from where you left. You were talking about the supply and the demand side of the problem. You were talking about U and W and L-shaped recovery. So if you can just carry on from there. Shehzad, over to you.
He said, I think, yeah, is it still not working? You know what? I'll get on my mobile. If it, take Adi or Asad, and I'll come back. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Because I think, can you hear me properly now or no?
No, not very well. So best is if you come via mobile and then we take you in from there. I'll go to Asad till then. Asad, thank you very much for joining us. If you can put yourself on mute, that will help. Asad, Ali also spoke about the opportunities available, which some of them are via the agriculture sector, etc. But clearly there would be a lot more opportunities available to us, not just in terms of becoming more resilient as a nation and in terms of our economy, but also in the way we carry out our business. So how do you see us dealing with the economy? How do you see us coming out stronger? And what are the areas we need to focus from a futuristic viewpoint? So try and paint a picture of the future for us while giving your account of the crisis as well. Asad, over to you. Asad, you'll have to unmute yourself, or if admin can do it. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
First of all, thank you, Waqar, and thank you to ICAP and the Professional Business PAIB Committee, Professional Accountants and Business Committee, which has organized this webinar. I think a lot has already been said. You have already provided a very comprehensive situation that we are in, and then Shehzad spoke on the economy, and Ali has given a business perspective. He also talked on opportunities. The difficulty that I find is that I do not want to repeat whatever has been said. So I'll try to, focus on, giving a very brief perspective of how I look at it. First of all, I think we all know that this is perhaps certainly the biggest crisis that we have seen all of us, whoever is living here at current times. I'm 61 years of age and nearly 40 years in business. The amount of suffering and shock and adversity and the pain and the problems that one sees on media 24/7 and around us is simply amazing. We have had big crises like 9/11 or like global financial crisis and other epidemics earlier, earthquakes and many disasters. But this is perhaps in many ways the most pervasive and most impactful, because this is the one that there has not been a crisis that has impacted each and every individual who is living. I'm sure all of us have been impacted in some way, some more and some less. Talking about the epidemics, just to mention this, that there have been many epidemics and pandemics, right? Rather, and pandemic, is obviously an epidemic that impacts across the borders and worldwide impact. This is the third largest pandemic that the humanity has seen in the last 1,000 years. Before this, there was, the Spanish flu, which probably killed more than 50, 60 million people. So in terms of casualty, it was much bigger. But the largest one that the humanity has seen in history was in 14th century, in 1360, which was the Black Death in Europe. And that virtually killed 1/3 of Europe. 1/3 of adult, people alive were killed. And Waqar, just imagine that based on my understanding of history, whatever I have analyzed, it was as a result of that catastrophe that obviously after losing 1/3 of the population, the humanity reacted and there was so much impact. Humans, whenever their humanity is challenged, and whenever there is pain and suffering, the greater the suffering, the greater the adversity. As they say, there is always an opportunity in adversity. So it was after that pandemic that Europe, came back with Renaissance, and the Europeans started innovation and, the age of reason and science and Renaissance started. And it was in 15th century that, these corporate companies started, the first banks started, and the world of business and the trading and, exploration and the colonization, all of that. And, so it killed 1/3 of Europe, but then the Western Europeans became the masters of the universe. So that is what, is the opportunity for the humanity. I think like what happened, and this one after that, I think is the biggest one, because obviously at that time it was just Europe. This is the only epidemic which in terms of, what we are seeing and the impact, the psychology and the economy has impacted each and every one. And of course, as you talked about it earlier, it's not going to be over in 1 or 2 months. It is likely to stay for many months, maybe a year or two. But, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Keep going.
So obviously, it has changed. It is causing a total pervasive change, not only in our businesses, not only in the way we do business and interact with each other, but with this social distancing and other precautions that we have to take to survive. It is going to totally change our lives. And the biggest opportunity really is, and again here, let me also quote Darwin, and this explains the human reaction. So it was one of the greatest sayings of Darwin was that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. So basically, going forward, the opportunity is for those people who will adapt to this change that is coming. Now, we know that the current crisis has obviously impacted all the businesses, but certain businesses perhaps will never be the same, or at least in the foreseeable future. The businesses like airlines, hotels, travel, tourism, public transport, the physical conferences, sporting events, musical festivals, even manufacturing in many ways, retail, service industries, for certain period of time, schools, hospitals, etc., all need to be different, and we need to learn, to modify these businesses. And at the same time, there are opportunities, and the opportunity, for instance, instead of physical conferences, this one, the web meeting that we are having, now thousands of people can attend this, and it is very, very low cost. So that is where the opportunity is. Definitely, I think we all agree that this epidemic, this pandemic, this crisis is going to push the world to the digital, and using the exponential technologies which are there, I'm sure the humanity will overcome it and adapt to it. And obviously, it is an opportunity for countries like Pakistan also. If we adapt to it and show our resilience, then I'm sure it will. There are huge opportunities. Now, coming to the response to this crisis, already Mohammed Ali already talked about the government's response. We know that federal government has already announced 1.2 trillion rupee stimulus package, the construction industry package. The State Bank has announced some concessions. I think now with the recent, the last 2 days news, actually there's a huge opportunity which has become available for the government to make a huge difference to this economy and help in survival and revival of the economy. The opportunity here is, now let me just explain that now we all understand that Pakistan's economy was actually in a very bad shape. We were already a shrinking economy, and we were repeatedly going to the IMF. We were insolvent, and it was, to get the balance of payment support that we went to the IMF, and the government was virtually constrained. The public sector development program was constrained. Government had no money, and the economy was shrinking. Now, the benefit or the opportunity of this crisis is that while the hands of the government was absolutely tied up and they couldn't do much, because of this crisis, now the IMF and the IFIs and the global, G20 countries have become very supportive. The government has now huge space available to make an intervention to address the suffering which is going to be there, the job losses, to address the businesses which are going bankrupt, to help provide relief to the poor, very large number of people who are going to lose jobs. And here is the opportunity. You see, government had only announced 1.2 trillion rupees. Now, just imagine that only IMF has provided $1.4 billion. Now, add to that about $1 billion. I expect that World Bank and Asian Development Bank can also provide, or nearly $1 billion, so that it will be around $2 billion. And there is going to be a relief of at least $12 billion due to G20 countries, the external debt rescheduling and delays and moratorium. So all of that combined makes it a fiscal space to the government of about 2 trillion rupees, more than 2 trillion, 2.2 or 2.3 trillion. Now, together with that, the central bank has also reduced the interest rates. And due to that reduction, the government's cost of borrowing will also reduce, and that will provide additional space of about 1.3 trillion. Now, I also expect, hopefully, looking at the situation, the state bank hopefully should reduce 300 to 400 basis points more, because even now the interest rates, with the policy rate at 9%, I don't think businesses can survive with the interest rate of 11, 12%. So they have to bring it down to 5 to 6%. So if that reduction is made, that will provide further fiscal space to the government. So virtually, government has a fiscal space of nearly 4 trillion rupees, So compared to earlier 1.2 trillion, and in fact, it was not 1.2 trillion because a lot of it was some duplications. So now 4 trillion rupees are available. What I would suggest and hope that government actually announces bold steps, and together with investment in our health facilities and these lockdowns or smart lockdowns, improving our, providing more protection to the healthcare people, and improving hospitals and going for telemedicine and things like that, I think government has now the required space to invest in reviving the businesses and also providing incentives for innovative businesses. So here is what I propose. I propose that government should initiate a 5-point strategy. One is, increase the stimulus package from 1.2 trillion to at least 4 trillion. Government should also, taking this opportunity, digitize itself and embrace the e-government. you know, they should also start using Zoom and, you know, because at the moment, one of the bad things that has happened is that government has not only locked down the businesses and the people, but most of the government, 90% of the government is also on holiday, you know. People are sitting at home doing nothing.
So if you can start wrapping up, Asad, if you can just start wrapping up, please.
Yeah. So I think government needs to also communicate and make itself productive so that the services are available. Third thing is it has to incentivize export-based industry. Anything, not only export-based goods industry, but also the service industry. Fourth is obviously promote the technology-related businesses and you know, innovation. And fifth is the agro-based manufacturing. You know, the manufacturing that can use local raw material. So these are 4 or 5 major areas. Together with the relief measures, I think government has huge opportunity to make these, you know, take advantage of these, this opportunity. And obviously, I think choice is ours as a nation. If we adapt ourselves to the new environment, and if our leadership takes, you know, bold, as they say, bold is beautiful. So if they are bold enough to, you know, US, you know, has, as you talked about it, $2.2 trillion package. That is also around 10% of the total debt, government debt of the of US. So our total debt is 43 trillion. So if 10% of that is you know, increase, and if the government can save lives and save businesses and save livelihoods, and, you know, provide, you know, or preclude the unemployment, then I think it will be a great service to the nation.
Thank you very much, Asad. And I'll quickly repeat the 5 points solution that you gave to the government, and I hope I remember all of them. You know, talking about stimulating the agriculture industry, talking about digitizing the government. You also spoke about constructing a digital world, and I think it's so important to make sure that government help working towards constructing a digital world which works hand in glove with the physical world which already exists. Talking about increasing the stimulus package to 4 trillion with all the space available. Now moving on to Shehzad, and I saw a smile on his face when you mentioned that interest rate needs to be cut another 3 to 4%. So Shehzad, over to you. I hope this time technology lived up to its good reputation as well. Over to you, Shehzad.
Absolutely. Thanks. Absolutely. And I'll touch upon that. I'm also impressed that Shah Saab only quoted Darwin once in his speech. So that's good. Only once is a good thing. But I like his bold is beautiful. But really quickly, look, we've talked about the economy and talking about fiscal space again. It's been touched by my other panelists. But the fact is that there is already a 7 times what government earns is in the package. And just by the way, the cuts in interest rates are saving the country 1.3 trillion. So there is obviously that's also come in. But I just wanted to point one thing in interest of time on the economic front, that this is the first time in all the crises we have had that the private, the informal economy is getting hit the most compared to formal economy. And I think it's very important that it will also lead into what I'm going to say about digital, because I think this is the time that the informal sector that's always come through, because we can't look at data and say, how come this recovery happened so fast? And the answer is, it's the informal sector that really pulled the formal sector up. This time it's the other way around. And we really need to be careful about that, because that's where the most amount of employment is. On the business front, as I said, this is a supply side shock and a demand side shock. On the supply side, I think the lockdown has really disrupted the production. And some of the production it's gone. It's over for the entire period. It's not like it's going to come back. The demand is going to come back. There's some seasonality aspects and some things. And I think talking to a couple of large retailers globally, in fact, I was with one of them on a video call talking about how things are happening, and they buy from all over the world. They're the second largest retailer in the world. And they were talking about the experiences and also what happened in China and how that recovery has happened. But they're clearly being mindful of how long this will be and how they want to protect the supply side, because they know ultimately they'll need the same suppliers. So I think that's something that we need to be mindful of on the supply side. On the demand side, I think the business model, the client journeys have all been disrupted. And I think there will be a change of behavior, which we as individuals and as business leaders really need to understand. First of all, changes in discretionary spending will happen. Marginal propensity to save will be higher than before. We are a nation that spends a lot. Savings are always a problem for us. But I think this crisis has highlighted the fact, especially to the lower income, that having the money for the rainy day is important. I think there is a loyalty shock also that's going to happen. Brands will no longer be able to do this. General trust deficit will happen between a service provider and a user. And I think these are things that will really cause people to rethink how they go about it. There will be a value destruction and value creation in different companies in the same sector. And clearly high debt, low margin companies will get really penalized in this whole phenomena. And I think that's where liquidity will become a key question. Talking about response of government, I think I'm on the camp that I think under the Prime Minister's leadership, and I'm not, and Hafiz Saab and Razak Saab and Hamad, and I think we have reacted nicely. We can do more, if, as some of my panelists are saying, but I think securing the IMF funding, the RFF, the multilateral funding, that's deferments that we have gotten. And I know how difficult it is, because from the Standard Chartered portfolio, I'll get a perspective of 70 countries, and there have been a lot of countries lining up to get these deferments. So Pakistan jumping the queue has been a good thing for us. Getting cash to over 1.5 million households, opening up the low-risk sectors, and tax refunds are speeding up. I wish they speed up even faster, but I know that's a priority at the State Bank, and at the FPR, more importantly. Even I think the State Bank under Razak Bakar's leadership has done a good job. Rate cuts, whether it's the moratorium on principal and deferments, whether it's the applications related to employment, financing. I think that's been very well received. We have got thousands of applications under review. And I think the payroll financing, as they're calling it, and many others, the new sector, 7%. So I think that's been good. But I think this will be a lesson that decisions will have to be made decisively. They will have to be made. We have to be agile and we have to be quick. And I think that's what they've been doing. And I think that has to continue. On opportunities, I'll quickly talk about, Asad has talked about it, so I won't repeat. But I think we need to focus on opportunities, because I think this will be really how things have changed. Going back to February 2020, things won't be the same. Every crisis has a winner and a loser. Go back decades, centuries, and every disruption has left human race better than before. So I'm again an optimist. I think this crisis is no different. What we need to do is reform under this. And I really believe reforming under crisis is much better even for companies and for governments. And I think this is a great opportunity where systematic resistance to change will be reduced. People will be a lot more active. And I think that will be something that we have to look at. New business models, new value chains, new operating models will be the need of the hour. And we all have to come together. Private sector, public sector. It cannot be just public sector. It cannot be private sector. It cannot be the philanthropist. Everybody has to come together and collaborate. I think the big opportunity, first and foremost, I've been saying this in many panels, it's digital, digital, digital. I think this is where we can really leapfrog and really take away some of our historic challenges that we have had. I think this is the best time to really get digital into the households. Right now, a lot of the people who are resistant to digital or did not want to get into the digital net for obvious reasons, I think are being receivers of incentive financing or other forms of support will be more than happy to come in. And I think as things come out of this, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, I think we will be able to document everybody. And I think this idea of 10 to 12% tax to GDP will become a passive. So I think we really need to hone in on that. I know there's a lot of work being done at the health level, be it health, education, communication, commerce, digital disruption will happen. We need to look at how we look at our cost, the reduced fixed cost basis. I think this whole experience has told us that we need to become a lot more agile and a lot more variable cost. A lot of us, I mean, Standard Chartered, we are doing a lot of work from home. We were a bit quick to the start by investing heavily in digital in the last decade, and I think that's bearing fruit for us. And I think it's something that we need to do much more, and we continue to invest because we know that that's where the world is going. It's easier said than done, and I think we all need to work and have digital spend budgets. I think the way we are going to spend on telemedicines, 15 to 20% spike in data usage has happened. Talking to some of my clients in the telecom space, Waqar, you know that. But I think we also need to realize that to do this digital, we need to create an ecosystem. 35% of our subscribers have smartphones only. And the smartphones are, the usage is quite cheap, but the phones itself, because of all the duties and everything, are quite expensive. So if we want to make digital, we will have to work on the whole ecosystem. And the power of collective data will help collaborate across the board. AI being used in Korea and China is again something as examples what we need to do. Exports sector, I think Ali has touched upon it quite well. What we expect in terms of the backlash. I think what's happening is, and again, talking to some global buyers, what they're saying, supply diversification is something very much on their agenda. Over dependence on China has taught them that they need to supply side diversify. I think with that, we need to be quick because India, Bangladesh, and others are doing the same thing. Or Vietnam. So I think we need to really take lessons learned from it once we come out of the lockdown. Countries like Japan are already looking to diversify the manufacturing and supply destination. Mexico and India have started to gain share of US market share. So we really need to look at the sweet spot of our geographic location, low energy costs, fuel prices, cheap labor.
Okay, so we more or less got Shahzad. Shahzad, sorry, yes, you're back, so you can wrap it up.
I'll quickly finish it up. So I think we need to become that and become the contract manufacturer for the world. So I think there's export opportunities that we need to look at as people want to diversify out. Wholesale and retail, I think that whole experience of how we are going to come about that. And I think retail stores which are providing safety and online stores will be the sort of the need of the hour. So I think that's what's going to happen. A lot of good stuff is happening across the border with Flipkart, grocers in India, where 10,000 people they've hired in this crisis because they're gearing up to what the world will look like. So I think we need to do the same thing. And manufacturing, again, I think we need to start bringing it back home. The soft engineering that we are doing and so many other things that can be, as was touched upon by other colleagues. So look at, and really in this period, look at how we can get rid of non-essential imports altogether. There's no need to import New Zealand apples or do things that are, and we have talked about that. I think this is a period, extraordinary times, extraordinary measures. Lastly, on leadership, I think, Waqar, you had asked me, what are the few things that we can touch upon? Again, there's a lot of literature out there on leadership. We have some great leaders on this call, great leaders in ICAP. I'll just share a few things that I've learned in this period and some of the things that I've heard from others. One, I think a sense of urgency is extremely important. ये हो जाएगा attitude जो हमारा होता है कि यार ये हो जाएगा, कर लेंगे, बाद में देख लेंगे. I think those days are over. We really need to become a lot more agile in our decision making. Urgency is important. Launch the plan ahead team, which is looking at timeframes, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years on. I think this idea of just looking at it just in a very shallow window, it's over. We cannot become too dependent on projections because nobody knows the projections. That's my third point. I think we need to also focus on consumer confidence signals. Trust your own instincts and know your own leverage in your company's data and collaborating your insights. I think the days again are over where you have to rely on outside projections. And lastly, I think second lastly rather, we need to communicate regularly, whether with all our stakeholders, whether it's with our clients, whether it's with our suppliers, distributors, our regulator. Constant leaders have to be out there to give hope, but not false hope. I underline, not false hope. And lastly, we all need to collaborate. This is a time where we need to come together as a nation, private sector, public sector, regulator, regulatee, and even competitors. I think the days are over where again we are trying to outdo each other. Banks are coming very well together. I think we need to do that because I think when we collaborate with and across all sectors, large, SME, agri, everything, I think it will be great. So let me pause here and hand over back to you, Vakar. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Azad. Lots of great points. I love the fact that you emphasized a lot about speed. Somebody said that in today's world, big will not eat the small, fast will eat the slow. And I think it has become so true in the time we are living in today. You talked about decisive leadership. You also spoke a lot about digitization and data. And as again, Edward Deming said, that in God we trust, everyone else bring data. And we are all seeing the importance of data in today's time. Social distancing is going to be a way of life. And the only way to do it is to construct a digital world which blends well with the physical world. So great point. Thank you very much. Ali, I now come to you to bring a research and consultant angle to all the three panelists who have given us great insight into this discussion. I leave you with around 7 minutes if you can wrap it up, because we'll quickly go to look. We have a lot of questions coming in, and we want to cover as many as we can in the 20 minutes that we will have for Q&A. So if you can wrap it up, just quick couple of comments. We have an ongoing poll. Please fill it up. We'll announce the results before we conclude the panel discussion. We are live on Facebook. So far, we have over 8,000 views on Facebook. So please keep going live. Keep looking at the insight and hear the insights given by the panelists. Ali, over to you.
Thank you. So I'll try to be quick as time does not permit much. So as Shahzad said that projections are not relevant this time, but we'll start with some kind of a numbers what we have at point. IMF expect that we have a contraction of 1.5% in GDP this year. This means this quarter will have a shrinkage of about 15%. So that's a kind of a quantum at minimum we are looking at. And if shrinkage is more, your GDP could fall further as well. And of course, there are fiscal stimulus coming up, there debt restructuring coming up, and the kind of external support is coming as well. But this all will take the fiscal deficit to an alarming level, and it has to be unwind when we have a recovery. And we have a W-shaped recovery, we have a U-shaped recovery, or we have a L-shaped recovery. Whenever it is, that will be constrained by the fiscal pressure which we are emanating in this period of lockdown, and we don't know how much of the period of lockdown it is. It's all uncertain. And one comment on the fiscal side, my friend said that we'll have a saving of about 1.3 billion for reduction in 425 bips in interest rate. But 35% of that get back to government in the form of taxes, and then a bit of the debt is on the book of SPP, which comes quite a much in form of non-tax revenue. So saving, in my assumption, is about 800 to 900 billion rupees for that reduction, and whatever stimulus we are getting externally, that will create deficit, and that deficit has to be repaid. So, and Pakistan was coming out of a crisis, an external crisis, and that's been deferred for the time being due to the G20 and IMF support and all that. But we need this further restructuring. I think Pakistan, the wave of this restructuring under the leadership of Imran Khan, where he has a voice on the front with the soft image and all that, maybe in the domestic economic happening, it's a different story. But over there, he has a strong impact. So also we need to take that, the restructuring has to go beyond December, and we probably need to have restructured 3-year loans on this moment. And the other thing which went while the iron is hot, we need to do this with IPPs. As all my friends agrees over there, that prior to this COVID, the biggest issue what the economy has was on the energy side. But we are not energy competitive. That's one of the prime reasons our exports are low and that haven't been increased in the past 5 years. And with this kind of energy and this kind of a wealth transfer from industry and the consumer to the those IPPs and all those setups, that has to change, and there's something going on that has to be a fundamentally done. So the first opportunity in this crisis is that which external debt we are over the period of next few years, that was unsustainable. The kind of a domestic debt problem due to the high interest rate that comes down to as well. Now the energy sector, the quasi fiscal debt, and in the future the payments coming up, we need to resolve that. That's very important. The other point which Shazad mentioned about is about the informal and formal structure of the economy. And all the crises we had in the past, they were coming up somehow from the formal side to the international crisis, maybe it was 98, 2008, 2018, but this is a different in nature. It's affecting informal same. And informal effect is more because it's affecting more on the retail side and the wholesale side, which is as big as our agriculture sector. And that is largely informal. It's affecting our contractual arrangement in employees and everything. That's largely informal. How to support that? That's a cash for the government to give them some kind of a support. Punjab government is doing some work in that domain. The because provinces have the money, federal do. So they have to go to that. They have to give them some kind of a coverage, give them the get document. We slash down the rates. Okay, the banks like Shazad and all that, make them bankable over the period of time. And when things improve, they'll come into the tax rate automatically. That's a one very important message we need to see on that. And on the other side, which we talk about, Asad Ali Shah said it so beautifully how this the European example, how they came up after this, the crisis of one third of people dying down, and then they ruled the world and everything. And when we come out of the crisis, there is always an opportunity that to move up. And but whenever there is a shift and there is a transition, and of course Shazad said and everybody said, and there's no brainer that we need to go more digital. When we go more digital, the kind of workforce we have, the middle-aged workforce from 40s to 60s, which is not literate as the young one, and they're not as computer savvy, and they're not that adaptive. Now these will lose, but we have a huge flux of youth coming up. So these youth can really move up the ladder. So in days like maybe 5 years down the road, like the kid, like 20, 25-year kid is helping the dad who's out of the job to be the breadwinner of the family. So that kind of a things can happen in Pakistan. That kind of a change that happen in Pakistan. And on the front, like the things will slow down from the next 3 months to 18 months. I don't know how long it is. Will there be a second wave? Will how long is the lockdown? How long the lockdown in our exporting areas? We don't know about those things right now. But the long is that there is a pause, and Pakistani economy needed to be a restructuring. It needed to be restarted in a way that formal, informal, documentation, non-documentation, bankable, non-bankable, taxpayer, non-taxpayer, all those things they need to rethink, and they need to have an amalgamated system coming out of that in that period of time. So that's to me is a very important point. And to move on, which industries to work on, which to do, as Ali Tabas have said, that it's no brainer in every recession, Great Depression, and everything. Construction is the one. You start the construction. There's so much black money parked in there. You got the opportunity. You gave the amnesty scheme, which was not coming, but under the COVID, you got the opportunity to get, all the kind of approvals from FATF or IMF and all that to get it through. Now you have that, you work on that. It's low skilled, easy, the transfer of labor from other to this, but this gives you a room of maybe 6 months, 18 months or something. But to make this construction meaningful, we're not building infrastructure as per se, like roads and bridges and all that. We're constructing houses, commercial buildings. these need some kind of demand from the market. That demand comes when people start making money, when there's a transfer of wealth taking place. For that, it's very important that the mortgage market has to start with interest rate coming down. So how to work on those mortgage market, that's very important. How to change that structures on, that's very important. How to work on the foreclosure and everything and all that. So those things are very important. And the retailing concept has to change. How quickly we go to the digital world and all that's important. And then there's a huge opportunity in the export market, my other participants said that, and that my own experiences with the exporters talk as that it's prior to this COVID, there was a nationalist interest in the US to not give business to China. They'd see China as a threat. So that's an opportunity for everyone. And China is so big that even if a tail of it, like 5% of it getting in Pakistan, that's like Pakistan more than doubling of its exports. So that's one area that they probably we need to expand on that and work on that. And our exposure to GDP has gone down. So in this pause of an economy, which is about 3 months to 18 months, I don't know how long it is, you need to convert the shift towards the export. You need to convert the shift from undocumented to the documented. You need to convert the shift toward digital by taking up your youth. And that is a time that you need to work on the inherent disadvantages, the fundamental weaknesses of the economy, energy, consistent fiscal deficit, and your external vulnerabilities over the period of time. So you need to solve this. You are in a pause anyways, but once you come out of it, Pakistan can now come out of it better by any other economies because it's at this point less integrated. We don't depend upon tourism. We have a dependence upon remittances, which will remain, and remittances will remain stable in the short run. People livelihood depends on that. Your exports and imports would fall dramatically in this period of 3 months, and I don't know how long it is, but remittances will remain there. But once that thing is over, your remittances start coming down, then you really have to pick up your export and import substitution,
Yeah.
like you say.
If you
So
can
we need to
quickly
work
wrap
on
it up,
that.
Ali.
That's yeah. So the bottom line is this. I mean, it's a very difficult time. I can't be optimistic. I'm optimistic, as you know, by my writing and my, but this uncertainty is compelling me to be a bit little cautious. But this opportunity, we need to work on that. And the other thing which I need to note all these business groups, people over there, that we need to support the poor, to the vulnerable. We need to ensure that they get something. There's a gospel of wealth written by Carnegie Man by Bag Times. He and no better capitalist was than him. Like the way he developed the ruthless capitalist rail system in the U.S., but in the future how he gave back. So in times, all my friends who made so much money in this economy and the God being kind with you, it's time to return back to the poor.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you. Again, great insight. You talked about more or less reimagining a new normal, which is digital, which takes care of youth, which on the one hand, ensure that informal sector is not left behind, but also enable them to come upward, talk about export, talk about again demand creation on the local side. So lots of great insights. So just for everyone out there, we are more or less close to crossing 15,000 views on Facebook. Thank you very much to all the panelists. And the idea is not to scare you. We have 180 questions for you, which have come via Zoom, and our backend team is working diligently on sifting through them. I'll now come to you for Q&A. Shahzad, who is helping me at the back end, along with Umair, will quickly ask the question. I'll just request all panelists to be as brief as possible, because we want to take as many questions as we can. Right? So just try and answer it crisply, quickly. So the question for Ali, it has been a debate. I can't see the full screen. Just Yeah. So Ali, it has been a debate that whether this crisis can be compared with 2008 crisis or not. What is your views in either case, that whether fiscal stimulus is important or fiscal austerity? There's another one which says, how do you protect, given that export is a challenge, how can we protect export related jobs? So 3 questions, Ali, for you, if you can quickly answer them.
I think when this crisis, I think everybody mentioned, is not comparable. I mean, this kind of crisis happened once in a century. So it is no way closer to 2008. It's a far bigger crisis, and it's again a global pandemic. And this, as we all said, haven't seen in our lifetime. So you can't compare with 2008. It's a much bigger one. I think today the government needs more. We need more fiscal stimulus rather than austerity, because as you have seen that our lenders, our multilaterals have also been very liberal, in terms of giving additional funding to Pakistan. They've been very flexible in terms of announcing the stimulus package of 1.2 trillion. So this is a time I think we need more stimulus package, as Asad mentioned. That has to be 4 trillion. It's not about that the stimulus comes only in the economy. We also have to protect our small businesses and the people, which are daily earners, like daily wages. And I also want to congratulate our government. This SARS program, which they have rolled out, it has shown, that government at the time of crisis, is out to help the people, who needs the most. And this help needs to be expanded, because initially they have given 12,000, but God forbid, if this lockdown continues for a longer period of time, I think they even have to dish out more money, to make sure that these people are protected, during the crisis. What was the third one?
Last one was about how do we protect export jobs, because given the issues with the export now.
Yeah, look, I told you in the beginning, that the export jobs are actually very vulnerable, And I mentioned, that it's not across all the segments, which going to suffer. I think the biggest problem is the apparel industry, which also employs the largest number of people. In my textile business, I have told my team, that we're not going to lay off any single people, for the next 3 months. And I'm sure, that the world will start to open, and the orders will start coming in, not at the same level as it was pre-coronavirus, but I'm sure the demand will start to pick up, and it's a time, that we help our people and try to ensure that we don't lay them off. Maybe we can do some pay cuts, but if we can protect the jobs, I think that's what we need to do today.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much. Shahzad, can I have the next ones?
Sure. The second question is to you, Mr. Waqar, back to basics. Since past 3 months, we have been hearing this, but it is a myth or reality. Second, in this digital age and with lots of options available, do you think we can continue with this lifestyle that is only necessities, and for how long? Thank you.
I would pass on the question because I really want more panelists to answer. The answer to this is very simple. What you are part of right now, whoever has asked this question, is unprecedented in this country. This was not expected 4 weeks ago, and we are talking about 4 weeks, that 15,000 people would be watching top people from this country live and getting their insight. So the world is digital and we need to construct digital. But I want to quickly take Asad Ali Shah's take on this because he's very passionate about this topic as well. Asad, if you can quickly comment on this. Asad?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Asad, your take on this very quickly.
There is absolutely no doubt in my mind, or I think anybody's mind, that the biggest thing that will happen in this crisis is that it is going to push the entire world to becoming more digital. And this webinar is an example. And I think the nation and the people who move in this direction faster and smartly, getting into the data and exponential technologies and, becoming more and more digital, actually there is no choice. with the social distancing and the new norms, I think the e-commerce will become even a bigger reality, and the world is it's not going to be the same. I'm not saying that the physical world will totally disappear. The physical will also be there. We will also have physical conferences, but this will not go away. Probably people will combine both the physical as well as digital, and the importance of digital in terms of the cost and time savings, people will realize more based on this current experience.
Thank you, Asad. Somebody asked, is digitalization overrated? My quick response, it's actually underrated. And it needs to go up much higher. Next question. Shahzad, if you can just, once we have asked the question, you go to the next slide so we don't waste time in switching. Ali, employment security is now the biggest challenge. What options do we have to support that? Shahzad, keep giving the next slide, once you have asked the question. Yeah. Thank you. Ali.
Yeah, there have been several economic stimulus initiatives as well as welfare initiatives taken by government, including monetary policy, incentives for construction industry, as well as SARS program. In your views, what additional measures are needed, are need of the hour, and what's your view of the economy stimulus? Will this help to a larger extent to support economy today and tomorrow? Thank you.
Ali Khizr, can I get your views on this? Ali Khizr, are you there?
Sorry, it was muted. Yeah.
Yes, Ali, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's a very difficult to ask that. Of course, we need to have more. The thing is that this, what we need to do is this monetary stimulus. It's not a stimulus as per se. This monetary is like it's like a painkiller. Think about that. Economy is paralyzed right now, and it's in severe pain. But you give a painkiller, you will give a painkiller to relieve the pain, but it will relieve the pain, and but if you the economy would not come and start running like a normal person. So it is just to relieve the pain. So it's just to relieve the pain of the liquidity problem, what Ali Taba and others told us about. It's about the how to ensure the payroll, how to ensure that companies don't default, how to create that kind of a fiscal space that needed. Plus the monetary side, the tightening is to curb the demand. There is absolutely no demand in the market.
Okay,
if you take the rate to zero, there is nothing. And the other thing, what kind of a more stimulus we can give on the SARS? I think we need to expand that. It's giving up. We are giving up to 12 million people, and we're giving up like 12,000, which is like for 4 months, 3,000 a month. And based on our top bottom two quantile, their food expenditure is about 11,000 adjusted to inflation, and that they have like more than 12 million people in that. And what we need to support about the vulnerable population is about 43 million. So what we need to have a much bigger support from that, but government is cash strapped, so the support has to come from all the angles in that. And the fiscal side, you need to give more to the SMEs. So those who are not bankable. But the bankable SMEs and bankable companies, they're being supported by State Bank in deferment of loans, and then for they can get the fresh loan for salaries, expense, and all that. In case of SMEs, the provincial governments and all that, they have to cover the guarantee mechanism where they can have a coverage. They can match the EOBI patient that half of the payment they're coming, half the companies. They can sit down with the associations and about their liquidity issues, how to resolve that. So those kind of SARS program has to expand on this. Yeah.
Thank you, Ali. Shahzad, I'll come to you for this question. The pandemic situation has an impact on global as well as regional economy, considering a situation where we see a move towards better situation, say in 6 to 8 months, and I think it's a very optimistic estimate. What opportunities do you see for Pakistan, which if capitalized on a timely basis, can give Pakistan's economy an edge? over regional economy. Before you answer, just to let everyone know, we have now over 21,000 views on Facebook Live. Number of questions have gone up to 207. We'll not be able to take all of them, but I've requested ICAP to allow a 15 minutes extension to the panel so that we get as many questions answered as we can, and they have gladly accepted my request. So Shahzad, over to you.
Yeah, look, as I said in my opportunity piece, I think there will be lots of opportunities. One is internal, one is external. I think on the internal side, there are a lot of things that we are not doing. We were depending on imports. We can do it ourselves. Ventilators was an example a lot of people could, but there are a lot of soft, small engineering expertise that we have, and we just have not fully optimized it. We have been too complacent. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities to develop that. And the best beauty is we have 220 million people as consumers. So we can sell to them and save on the very scarce foreign exchange that is hurting our economy from a deficit point of view. At the same time, from export point of view, we have the traditional businesses, and the demand may be a bit weaker because of how these economies change and the buying behavior changes, textile and others. But at the same time, I was reading somewhere that US has decided not to export meat. Meat is an industry that we have tried to sell meat into Middle East, for example. I'm telling you, as a banker, we have received inbound calls from our global clients saying, can you connect us with some of the meat suppliers? Because there is a clear realization that being too dependent in the Middle East on certain markets is causing them in food insecurity. So I think that would be a perfect opportunity for us to get up to that opportunity, whatever standards we need to meet, which we have not been able to meet historically, use this downtime to really address those, get our own laws, regulations in place, and really be geared up for these opportunities. So I personally think there's going to be a huge amount of opportunities like that cropping up. And we just need to be, again, ready, agile, and get our cost structure right. And frankly, our cost structure in some cases has been ballooned because we have been relying, as I said earlier, on too much heavy fixed costs. I think this experience has taught us that we can be variable, and that's how we need to work. Thanks.
I think it's a very good point you make about the fixed cost and our thinking of adding more processes and adding more bodies and it solves the problem. It typically doesn't. It just increases your fixed cost and increases inefficiency. This question should ideally be answered by me, but I am avoiding it. So I'll again ask Asad and Shahzad, if between the two of you, you can answer. The only thing I can quickly comment, data is the new oil. So Shahzad touched upon it as well, that don't use instinct, combine it with data. So quickly, Shahzad, if you can make a quick comment, and Asad, if you can make a quick comment.
Sure. Asad, you go, Asad, then I'll go.
Well, I think one of the best example is how to handle the current COVID crisis. I think while all governments have been very fast in doing the lockdowns, and and the federal government has been very responsive in coming up with stimulus packages, etc. But one of the things it seems where we are lacking is the use of data, and the technology to this handling COVID cases, from where the cases are coming, the tracing and tracking, and how the people are getting impacted, what are the data points, and doing the modeling, and sharing different data points with people, and managing the crisis by use of data and data analytics. So obviously, there is a huge opportunity. Government needs to employ data scientists. They need to employ data analysts, whether it is in FBR or other social services. Everywhere, I think government will become very smart if they use data and take decisions on the basis of data rather than purely taking blind actions. I mean, I must say the lockdowns that we have done in Pakistan would have been rather blind. I'm not opposed to lockdowns, but together with lockdowns, it would have been better if we had done smart lockdowns, focusing on areas, focusing on the places where these cases were spreading, looking at the causes and addressing those causes.
Okay, thank you, Asad. Shehzad, I think Asad has given enough insight on it. I'll ask you to answer the next question on the screen, and I'll read it out for you. All institutions should take up with the government to reestablish. So what the question is, to reestablish institutions for long-term financing of industries, small and large, like PIDC, IDBP, PICEC, etc., reviewing mistakes of the past. So do you see a need for restructuring all these institutions along the new lines for long-term and short-term financing?
Sure, I'll answer that. But just to add to the previous question, as we are doing big data, I think cyber security is important. I think a lot of data and very confidential data of individuals gets leaked, and it's on WhatsApp, and people are finding out who got COVID, where, the CNIC number. I think we need to give confidence, we need to get people comfortable that when they share their personal data or their information, it does not get publicly with their mobile numbers and so forth. So let's be very careful about that, because I think this big data is the big opportunity. I think what China and Korea have done and why they have flattened out their curve is because of big data. And I think there's some good work being done in Islamabad and in other places. To your second question, absolutely.
To restructure these organizations.
Absolutely. We have always been propagating that these institutions were formed with the aim that they will provide the long-term capital that commercial banks, which are focused on short to medium term, are not capable of. And we need to match their funding, long-term assets with long-term liabilities. Unfortunately, what's happened is herd mentality. This is a problem our nation has had historically. If they like Muhammad Ali doing cement, 10 other people will jump cement. 8 people like what Mia Saab is doing in some other, in textile, 18 other people will join the Mia Saabs of the world. And I don't mean one Mia Saab, I mean general Mia Saabs, by the way. So my point is, this is the thing. And I think the same thing is happening. And the same thing has happened in this thing. I really urge for us to rethink about it, get people. And what's happened is, because with high interest rates, short-term liability windows were available, and these organizations were really moving away from their purpose and what they were formed for. It would be a great opportunity to form that, and I think that's a great suggestion.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll take 3 more questions in the interest of time. Just go back to the previous slide, please, Shehzad. Yes, Ali Taba, this question is for you. If you can please have a look at it. Interest rate reduction, is it a short-term solution, or a small or some more dip is expecting, or for that matter, is it needed to provide the support for the economy? Shehzad answered it as well in his intro, but I want Ali Taba's views on it. Ali, can I have you?
I think, you see, our state bank governor is very pragmatic when it comes to interest rate reduction, right? He always links it with your inflation numbers. But as I believe, that our prospective inflation number will be lower. So I think state bank would have more space to reduce the interest rate. And as I said earlier, today we need to kickstart our economy, and the best way to do is through investment, and investment will only be possible if the investor feel that the interest rate is at a level which is comfortable for them to go for short-term and mid-term and long-term funding. But I think if you ask me, I think there is still some more room, for the interest rate reduction.
Thank you, Ali. We have now crossed 24,000 Facebook views. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining and providing this amazing support. Next question is on global supply chain. Shehzad Dada, I need to come to you again. And it says global supply chain is declining. What restructuring is recommended for supply sustainability? After this, we'll take 2 more questions.
By the way, Waqar, it's interesting why you did not ask me the question on interest rates, but we'll talk about that.
Because you already answered it, so I didn't want to go there. But
I echo what great friend Ali has said, Mohammed Ali has said. Okay, on global supply chain is declining and what restructuring is recommended. Look, guys, supply chain is declining, and I think this global buyers are looking at different markets and they're learning from these mistakes and how they can prevent and be ready. Because I'll give you the example of another big buyer in the West, which was telling me that in China, using January as -100 when all the stores were closed, today they are -20 compared to that. So the recovery has been quite sharp. Now, conspiracy theorists here would say China data is X, Y, and Z. But the fact is, I'm telling you right from the horse's mouth, and a very large global player. So clearly, I think they're realizing that if that sharp recovery happens in Europe and other places, they need to ensure that the suppliers in markets like ours and all are ready. And if they are not ready, they'll move their buying from one of the countries that's not ready to a country like Pakistan. So I think it's a huge opportunity if, again, we become more agile, more lean, and realizing that social distancing is here to stay. So how do we operate and how do we do the same thing? Maybe we'll have to run 3 shifts. Maybe we'll have to think about our working days and so forth, just to stagger people. And how do we adopt transportation? Public transportation in Pakistan is already weak. So I think these are the things, both, again, going back to my earlier messaging, collaborate, cooperate, and work together, public-private sector, so we are ready, because that will be the huge opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. Collaborate, cooperate, work together. Ali, I want your comment on the supply chain part as well. And also, because this question is directly linked to you, so it was real estate, and I want to combine it with the construction sector package. But if you can comment on supply chain and also real estate sector package and construction package.
Because we are too early here, which one you want?
I want the first to go to supply chain.
Okay. I think Pakistan has never been a part of a supply chain to the world, right? Pakistan export basket is very narrow, and what we do, is that we were never integrated, as part of the supply chain. So I think Pakistan is going to get disaffected. Pakistan is affected in exports because our stores are closed. All the retails are closed in the Western world. So once they open up, I'm sure the demand will start to come. As I said earlier, it's not going to come up to the same level as it was. Let's say it was 100 pre-COVID. I think post-COVID, slowly, gradually, those economies will recover, and we might able to recover up to 70% over the period of time. In short term, I think between, let's say, from now to 12 months, I think we'll have more impact on exports. But I am very, very confident, that the numbers will come up very sharply. When it comes to real estate, I think, look, the government of Pakistan is very clever. As soon as they got this space available, from the lenders, they immediately announced a construction package. And this is absolutely, blessing in disguise, because they understand, that when you want to revive the economy, especially under the condition, where everything is bad, this is the sector, which will drive the growth, which will bring jobs back to the people. So this is a great initiative, and it's going to go a long way, and these kind of initiatives and decision makings will be required in the future, from the government, because as soon as they will be able to find some spaces, I think they need to make those decisions. They have to go a little easy on the informal economy, because that will also going to help to stimulate, the demand side. And today, that's what we need. We need demand so industries can operate at maximum capacity. And this way we will come out of the crisis very shortly.
Thank you very much. Ali Khizr, I also want your view from a consultant and researcher viewpoint on the construction package. Just give us your 1 minute on this.
Just as Ali Taba said, that his supply is cement and demand is by builders, where the government has given the package and they've gone easy on this documentation, and they've given the amnesty. But there's another, the chain answered the consumer, the buyer. If you're making houses, you need to have enough buyers. And if they give a room to the buyer to get the houses, even on informality, again, there are very few who can do that. If you see the recent construction in Karachi, 20 to 30%, and some estimates say up to 40% are empty. There are 50 million empty houses in China. There are ghettos, and ghost houses. India has done that. There is a problem with that. So unless what India has done that they have increased the mortgage to GDP from 0% to 10% in 10 years. And Pakistan is at 0%. Virtually, I say when you have a 70,000 loan of the 32 million household, it's 0%. So then unless you take it to the 5-10%, the problem is you'll create supply on the one side, but then you'll have a stoppage and you'll have a stuck investment. The transfer of wealth from rich to poor takes place when they make houses, and that house create wealth, and that's where Shahzad comes to give the. So Ali Taba would make the cement. Someone will come and do construct. Shahzad will give the loan, and the consumer who are the audience will get houses. That's how it is.
Yeah, and Asad Ali Shah will provide financial consulting for all this.
Waqar, I just want to say, Waqar, I just want to echo what Ali Khizr said. I think the mortgage industry, which has been really pathetically low, underpenetrated, less than 1%, 70 to 80,000 households out of 32, as he's saying. I think this is a huge opportunity, and with interest rates coming down and with the legal system opening up, I think it's a huge opportunity for banks to step in and provide the necessary catalyst and for the consumers. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And as we head to the last question, we have close to 25,000 Facebook views. Zoom is full capacity already. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in and listening to this great panel. Asad, this question, this is possibly a $1 trillion question, if you like. Will our bureaucracy go back to the normal pre-March, or will there be a new normal for them? And they will actually adapt to new ways of working. Asad, your take on this.
Thank you, Waqar. I think this is a 4 trillion package, stimulus package question that I was referring to. Absolutely. And as I said, really, this is it's a very smart question. It's a once in a century opportunity for the PTI government, for Imran Khan, because we know that, before this crisis started, frankly speaking, we all know that our economy was already shrinking, and virtually people have been disappointed with, I will be very frank, with most of the governments in Pakistan repeatedly. And I in fact have observed that one hopes that every government will be different. But in Pakistan, as somebody said, that politicians have adopted traditionally this strategy of promise everything and deliver nothing, kind of approach. Yeah. So, but as I said, federal government especially has huge opportunity. Before the current crisis, as you know, after the 18th Amendment, all the resources substantially have been transferred to the provincial government, and the federal government is hardly left with debt servicing and defense. Even the Prime Minister's salary is also paid from the debt. So here now, with this so much fiscal space becoming available, here is the opportunity. And let me give you another quote from Oscar Wilde, which I usually, I've been quoting. He said a very interesting thing. He said that anyone who lives within his means seriously lacks imagination. So, here is an opportunity that the government has to act boldly, come up with innovative policies, a big package to save human lives, to save livelihoods, to ensure that people don't become jobless, and revive the existing businesses, and also reward innovation. I know it's easier said than done. Obviously, very, very difficult job. But if anybody, I think any government that can do or that has the opportunity, I think it is the federal government.
Thank you, Asad. Shahzad, because I think I got one very important question just now, and I want to go back to you and get your quick comment. Is there a risk of rupees sliding further significantly in what is happening?
Well, I think right now, if you just look at today's data, rupee has appreciated quite a bit. I think it's closed at 163.20, and I think it's a reflection of some of the bilateral relief that we got, plus the RFF funding. And I think, again, that's boded very well for us. I personally think the demand side is also on the supply side, with oil at the low end of it. Yes, exports and remittance will be in for a challenging quarter or two. So I'm quite confident and hopeful that if we can get the equation right, look, if I knew the answer, first of all, I would not be sitting at 9:30 answering any of your questions. I would be sitting, if planes were working, I would be sitting on a nice paradise island. And I personally think there's opportunity that rupee will be stable and appreciate a little bit more. There will be a lot of, the other thing I would say on this, just think about it. All over the world, there's a stimulus package going on. And how they're funding those stimulus package? Because they're printing money. Everybody is printing money, including US. It's all relative. So if there will be inflationary pressure, but because of inflationary pressure, you're going to see everybody providing different stimulus packages, some beyond their means, because they can't afford. But once they do it, it's all relative. And I think if we hold up some of our key exports and remittance, coupled with the fact that we be more disciplined on our imports, and I think we need to really learn from it. Non-essential imports, no. Make in Pakistan, do it. And I think if you do all of that, you will be able to bring the currency back to a better norm. And I'm very confident, and I think the State Bank is doing a good job in maintaining that balance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shehzad. So yes, Ali, just 30 seconds.
Yeah, I second Shehzad, and I think currency to appreciate on those factors. The State Bank sees three fundamental things at rear. On basis, your currency should be around 150. Based on the current account, which I see in surplus this quarter, it should be come back to 160 or 50 level in band. And the third issue was the external account. And that's why the currency was under pressure. And now with external account, G20, IMF 3 billion coming up, IMF Bank ADP, and G20 restructuring of the loans, this will give some ease on the currency. And on the printing money, Pakistan is not printing money. Pakistan is getting money from the IMF and XYZ to spend on that. And they're getting money from the reduction in the interest rate. So in relative to the world, we are not printing money. Our currency has to appreciate more fundamentally going forward. And our inflation becomes low, which is likely to be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just on the last question, and maybe I can wrap up using that. Do we need more R&D? It absolutely is. So what has changed in last 4 weeks? And we are not talking about last 4 decades change. We are talking about last 4 weeks. And let me just count some of them to all of you. We have started working from home. If I had said it to someone 4 weeks ago, he would have called me crazy or idiot in this country. Leave aside that, we talked about bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is having virtual meetings. This was unheard of in this country, right? The online stores and their sales have gone up. People, even the informal sector is connecting with consumers via SMS and phone. This is unheard of in this country. The important thing is to make it a lifestyle. I believe there is a strong case for policy intervention to make a digital world and to construct a digital world. Let there be a space for physical world. Let there be a world for digital world and physical world. Let them operate together. That is the only way on a interim basis at least, and then it will become a lifestyle. We can bring the economy back. Otherwise, social distancing until the time we have a cure will continue to allow us to have lockdown and then release it, and then again see trends going up, bring it back again. It will continue to create issue. The only way to create physical spaces is by start doing businesses, bringing consumers and businesses online and letting them work out from there. So on that front, I really want to thank all the panelists for great insight. We have run over time. My apologies for this, but the kind of questions, as of now, I can see 214 questions. So you can imagine we could only take some of them, but great insight, great questions, great participation, lots of chats also on Zoom. where people were commenting, some were hating us, some were loving us. It was also great to hear that a lot of good comments about the work federal government and our governments have done in terms of being proactive and being decisive. So once again, I want to thank ICAP for the opportunity provided to me and to all the panelists to share our views with people, with over 25,000 people attending this. Thank you very much once again. Over to Shahzad.
Thank you very much. And it's a huge success with 27,000 participation right now. Thank you, all of you. Let me give over to Khalid Rahman Sahab. He's the main behind all this webinar. He's the PIB committee of ICAP. Sorry, I was saying that Mr. Khalid Rahman is the man behind all this webinar series, and he has led us throughout. We were keeping disturbing him for every minute. Over to you, Khalid Saab. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shahzad. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening. Wow, what a great session it was. It was totally unthinkable that a webinar would attract 26,000 viewers. So thank you very much. It's all because of our distinguished panel. I would like to thank Mr. Muhammad Ali Tabba, Mr. Asar Ali Khan, Mr. Shahzad Dada, Mr. Wakarul Islam, and Mr. Ali Khizr. You have been a wonderful panel. ICAP this will go in the history of ICAP, and we are extremely grateful that you could participate in ICAP's webinar today. The discussions were most insightful and relevant to the current uncertain conditions. You have given us hope, and we look forward to a better future. I'm pleased to inform, as was already said by Wakar, that we have a record number, the maximum viewership, past 26,000. And the maximum viewing was 7,000, and there were 4,000 people who were engaged as part of this session. I would like to thank all the participants for being with us and for being a wonderful audience and to have asked relevant questions. I think we let you go very easy with the questions. We got 233 questions, and you were only asked about 15. So I think we would reserve for the next session. We'll invite you again, and hopefully you'll come and be part of the panel and face all the questions. We censored them quite a bit, but they have been a very interesting debate, both on Zoom and on Facebook. And I'm sure they would be also on other media, social media channels. And we will keep you all posted as to what the outcome of today's program has been in the context of the viewership. Today's webinar has culminated out of extreme hard work. We decided about a week back. Asad, you are a witness to it. And we got extremely good panelists at very short notice. And again, it has been a remarkable performance by each panelist. And we are extremely grateful to all of you once again. But more grateful I am to the team who worked on this webinar. They put in a lot of hard work. It was a team comprising of multi-dimensional team, comprising of members from the PIB committee of ICAP. As we all heard, Shahzad Dedi, he was the man behind it. Muhammad Hubair, who was behind the scene. He's still sitting here and behind the scene. Murtaza Feroz and Khalid Noor. These were the great people who worked day and night to make it happen. They really did a lot of good work. We also had full support of our regional committees, the North and the South Regional Committee. And for that, I would like to thank Arsalan Khalid and Asad Feroz, and also the untiring effort of the ICAP staff, which was Anwar, Imran Hafiz, Adnan Usmani, Arslan Rabbani, and Shahnawaz Abro. I salute their commitment to serve the ICAP fraternity, and my deepest gratitude to each one of them for making this webinar a success. I would also like to acknowledge the support of ICAP Council, who gave us full support and backing and a lot of encouragement, and in particular, the guidance provided by our Honorable President, the youngest president, but the most dynamic president, Mr. Khalilullah Sheikh. Thank you, Mr. President. This is the first of the webinar series that ICAP Professional Accountants Business Committee is organizing. We started this series with a broader topic, and we will be now narrowing down to industries, giving the adverse and the positive impact of the current scenario on those industries. And going forward, we look forward to your support in terms of your valuable input and also being part of the panel going forward. The PIB committee has also published a paper today. So, you know, we are using our time most effectively. Webinars, producing papers, and today's paper was on leading business continuity during the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been sent to all the ICAP members, and we have now placed it on ICAP website. Hard work of a very committed team comprising of Humair again, Osama, Fuad, and Khalid Noor, and others. We look forward to your active participation in our future webinars. This brings us to the conclusion of this webinar. God bless you all and wish you a safe and healthy exist from coronavirus. Good night and Allah Hafiz. Pakistan, Zindabad. Pakistan, Paindabad.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.